Hello YouTube, just a quick video here with the Ravin bolts. A lot of discussion on the internet about lighted versus non-lighted bolts and their impact when you're doing your target shooting, testing your accuracy between the two. A lot of fallacies I see. I'm seeing people report 30, 40, 50 grains difference in weight on these. The major complaint is that some of you are putting your lighted bolts in your Ravin and you're not getting the same impact point as you would with your non-lighted bolt and your field tips versus your broadheads, so on and so forth. We have basically a non-lighted 003 factory Ravin bolt here. We have two lighted Ravin bolts. These are factory 003 lighted Ravin bolts. We have two practice tips, and then we also have a Raptor trick, slick trick Raptor trick head on this one. Basically what you're going to find is if you actually weigh these, your front of center weight is almost identical, which does make a difference in the archery world. And these, all three of these arrows or bolts are basically within 8 grains of each other. 8 grains is not going to cause your impact to be off 6, 8, whatever, how many inches some of you guys are talking. Your bolts are basically flying way off between the lighted and the non-lighted bolts. 8 grains, I'm a regular compound bow shooter, and I can shoot a compound bow at 275 feet per second with up to 10 to 12 grains in difference, and virtually out to 40 yards, maybe have 1 inch of impact difference over the course of 12 grains of weight. With these only being 8 grains in between each other, and these bows shooting well over 400 feet per second, this is not, the lighted bolts are probably not your problem, folks. You know, you could be anticipating wanting to look for the light and not following through on your shot. That is kind of a suspicion I have. You guys go to put these things on here, you shoot your lighted bolts, and they're way off from your field point non-lighted bolts. You might actually be kind of anticipating watching the lighted bolt and raising your head off of the scope, or just jerking the trigger because you're wanting to see what the lighted bolt does. So make sure you're following through with your shot. Also, I found anytime you buy these bolts that you need to make sure that your knock index is correct with your knock vane. I've pulled a lot of these lighted bolts out where that knock index is just slightly offset, and you're going to get fletching contact as it leaves the rest. Make sure that that's not an issue that's causing your deviation in flight. You know, they should be basically parallel with your, just like so, should be parallel with your knock vane. So we're going to turn on the scale here. We're all zeroed out. Here we have your non-lighted practice tip bolt, and as you can see, you can kind of play with your front of center of balance here to get it to lay on the scale correctly. We're at 400, and let's just call it 406 grains. That is a non-lighted practice tip Ravin bolt. Here is your lighted. Virtually your front of center of balance is still the same. You're at 398. So basically what's that come out to? 7 grains? 7 grains of difference on this particular bolt. And then here is a lighted bolt with a 100 grain broadhead on it. Your front of center might change a little bit depending on the length of your broadhead. But we're at 401. So we're at 398, 405, and 401 grains between 3 different bolts with practice tips, with lights, with not lights. 8 grains is not causing you guys 6, 8, 10 inches of variation in your flight path. I shoot all these, and they're all right on cue with every one of them. My broadheads, I have two different Ravens. I've shot Schwackers. I've shot these Raptor tricks. I currently use my broadhead of choice is a Grim Reaper Crossbow 3-blade head. And I can put a lighted bolt with a practice tip against a non-lighted bolt with a practice tip. They shoot spot on out to 60 yards is what I shoot out to. For testing. There might be 1 inch of variance, and that's usually because I'm doing something wrong. You guys need to make sure you're shooting off a rest or a good bipod when you're testing these. Don't anticipate raising your head up off of the sight to see the lighted arrow to see where it's going. Follow through on your shot. If you're getting deviation beyond that, you need to start looking at your broadhead choice or the possibility that you're getting some type of fletching contact. The fact is these things do not have 20, 30, 40, 50 grains of difference like some guys are reporting on the internet, and they're saying, oh, the lighted bolts are junk. They don't impact with your practice points, yada, yada, yada. It's absolutely not true. I have probably 20 different bolts for these things. They're all factory lighted. I think I've got 6 of the lighted, and then the rest of them are all practice tips. Like I said, I have 2 Ravin R10s, and no matter what bolt, broadhead, field point I put in either of my 2 R10s, the impact is spot on out to 60 yards. So you need to start looking at other problems if you're getting impact deviation. So watch some of the information you read on the forums. I just wanted to put this on here to show you guys that what I'm seeing reported is not necessarily true. Hunting seasons come up, go out, get your practice in, get everything set up. You might have to make minor adjustments, but typically, you know, when you have a good broadhead and everything's lined up correctly and you're doing your shots correctly, you might have maybe 1 inch of deviation between a good broadhead on a lighted bolt, on a non-lighted bolt. These things are pretty accurate. I mean, you're talking golf ball impact size out to 60 yards. You should not be having 6 and 7 inch, 8 inch deviation on your targets between these broadheads and lighted bolts and non-lighted bolts. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure your bows are tuned. Make sure you're shooting from a good rest. You're following through on your shot. You know, don't blame the equipment. A lot of times, you know, it's something you're doing as a shooter, or, you know, it's a piece of your equipment that you're overlooking. But happy hunting this year, and have fun. Be safe. Thanks.